Hey. Oh, hello, ladies and gentlemen. You must be wondering, why is the video starting in this manner? What is going on? Well, I'll tell you something. I've just received a package. And speaking of packages, you could win a package too, okay? And I'll tell you how. If you go into the link in the description, I've teamed up with football prizes, and you could potentially win with the discount code MAH10 on that is slapped onto the $3.99 raffle ticket. So it's quite cheap, like a super chat. And you have the opportunity to win a Mason Mount framed and signed shirt. Now, let me tell you something. I've crunched the numbers. It's not too bad, actually. 5% chance of winning because there are over 10 prizes and there's only 199 limited tickets. And it's from yesterday, Wednesday, to next Wednesday. So there's a limited time, there's limited tickets, and there's over 10 prizes. So like I said, you could potentially win. You've got like a 5% chance. That's actually not bad odds. And you'd be helping me out because, as I say, football prizes do pay. Oh, yes, they do. So, if you would like to help, and if you would like to be involved, you can go down there in the link in the description and receive the package. And like I said, this is my first ad, and let's not make it my last. So make sure you support. And make sure you enjoy the content because there are more ads coming and you will watch those regardless if you don't like this one. So you may as well just... It's YouTube. This is how it works. We run ads. Okay. Right. Goodbye. See ya. Perfect. Yo, people, welcome back to the YouTube channel. You already know what time it is. It's time for another video. And listen, this time, the collaboration. Do you know what I'm saying? The collaboration. Me and NiiNii once again bringing up the good content together. Because listen, there's always a conversation. Me and NiiNii love a good debate. We love a good discussion. And there's no better person for it because we can get into the intricacies of what this team could look like. Now that Todd Bowie has arrived, the consortium, Clear Lake Capital, do you know what I'm saying? All of the bandits have arrived now. No one can call us oil boys. No one can say that we're, you know, a money sugar daddy club. We're run well now, NiiNii. Do you know what I'm saying? We're run well.
Goalie boys now, man.
For all them brothers that were on their high morals, now they can look at us and they can love us. Do you know what I'm saying? We're a well-run club now. We're just little Chelsea just getting by. But how are you doing, bro? Talk to me. How you feeling?
Yeah, man, I'm good. Obviously getting ready for the summer. Exciting times right now. I mean, if this is our history, isn't it? Like, we got a new owner in right now. This guy's not going to be selling in the next 5 years. You know what I mean? Like, I can't believe the end of Roman Abramovich. Still feels very surreal and hasn't really like synced in right now. But of course, finally, the saga's over involving the takeover. And now we can just focus on the summer. We can focus on rebuilding the team. It's a unique opportunity where Tuchel, not only does he have like time now to build a team, now he's got money to spend, and most of the team is leaving as well to make it easier to build a team in his image. So this is a very unique time currently. So it's so exciting. It's so exciting right now.
Do you know what's mad? Do you know when this feels like a cleansing? Like when Mandem have celery juice and they decide that they're going to change their lives and they're going to completely detox and they're going to, you know, rejuvenate themselves. That's what it feels like.
You're literally talking about my life right now, to be honest. Why do you think the skin's
got the celery juice on the side there?
Why do you think the skin's glowing right now, bro? Come on.
It's not just the cocoa butter. Do you know what I'm saying? It's definitely the celery as well. Listen, I'm telling you, bro, because what you're saying is right. It's similar because although maybe the contracts that have expired, not the ones we wanted, but it reminds me of City. Obviously not new ownership, but they brought in Tiki. They had Pep coming in and they had like Sanya and Clichy and all these guys expiring at one time. And then they had to kind of like rejuvenate and refresh their squad. We kind of have to do similar, but we're also debt free. There's an anti-Glazers clause. Like it really does feel like, although this was a very painful experience with Rain Group, it feels like they've made the right decision and you could see why the process, to be fair, they've done it in record time in 3 months. So I have to say well done to them because this stuff usually takes a year. We've seen the reports, you know, but for them to add these clauses, to add these safeguards, to make everything, you know, to a T perfect for us, it really is good. And now we can, like you said, we can build from this. I want to discuss today the midfield because I feel like it's very easy and we always talk about the forward line. And I feel like everybody has their own select forwards that they would probably move on, maybe 2 two forwards each, people would say in a realistic term, you would get in and get out to suit the other forwards and to try and cater to their needs, whoever you pick, to try and go in one motion and one focus. Because I feel like all the forwards are a little bit discombobulated. They don't really make sense. They don't really fit together. But if you make a couple changes, then it can move in one direction. I want to talk about midfield, and especially the young midfielders coming through, because I feel like, of course, it's very unrealistic, and we know how it goes. They're not all going to stay. We've seen the heartbreak of Tomori going, Gurhi going, Lamptey, Livramento. We know where it is. As much as we want all these guys to stay, we know where it is. In Tuchel's current system, my first point that I want to raise, because I've got concerns in, I know he wants to use Gallagher, and he clearly sees Gallagher as a key cog in his will, and he's mentioned him already. And in reports, they're saying that he's going to be a key part of the team next season, which is deserved on his form on Palace. But I don't want to just go off form and what people deserve, because I also want people to fit into the system. Timo Werner was in form and was doing brilliantly in another system. But when you bring, can that translate into our system? Can we bring those numbers across? Sometimes we look at the numbers and we say, these are high figures, they're doing great. He's doing great at Palace, he's doing great at Leipzig. But then when we translate that across, it doesn't work. And we set them up to fail almost. Gallagher, in this current system, and the only position I can see from is in that Mason Mount position, the 3-4-1-2, if we used to play like that, in that 10 where he's played for Palace, counter pressing, getting goals, getting forward. Where do you feel like Tuchel is a little bit maybe muddled up here in terms of he wants to keep the system and the strategy, but then at the same time he's got these midfielders, these eights that we talk about, the Gallaghers, the Rubens, that don't really fit that.
Yes, he's definitely got a very difficult season ahead, especially now with the talent that's going to be coming through, and that abundance of talent in midfield as well too. Like today, Tuchel was basically, it was confirmed that he told Gallagher, you're going to have a significant part for next season. So you're not here to be backup. You're not here to be playing wing back when we need you, or defense when we need you, etc., etc. And you'd imagine that Gallagher wants assurances first if he really commits to coming back. I think what is difficult though is I'm looking at Kai, Mount, Gallagher. It feels like it could be quite hard to see all these guys playing in the team together at the same time, unless maybe there could be a plan where Tuchel's thinking, listen, Gallagher, you playing in my two-man midfield, I think that could be the one. And I say this because last year during pre-season, Gallagher was getting minutes as, one of the options in the two-man midfield, basically. And Tuchel was impressed by him. So I guess my logic here is that maybe Tuchel's thinking he could be another figure to use in midfield, maybe have Mount, Kai influencing further up, potentially with a new signing as well too. But when I look at Gallagher, I think I even said it in my video today, but I think he's like our Nico Barella in that sense. I feel like his ability to win the ball further up, link the play, goal threat, pass forwards, boost the pace, and just like a crazy engine as well too. He definitely will bring a lot of industry to the team, and potentially over the years could even be that successor to Gallagher, to Kante, I mean. But I don't know, it's interesting. Gallagher, if he was in a two, would he have the license to get forward as much? I'm not too sure.
Yeah.
Unless maybe the plan could be like a 3-5-2. I mean, of course, Barella has the license to get forward. But if Gallagher's going to work, you have to utilize that skill. You have to have his ability to get in the books, affect the game, get goals. And this is a guy that got 8 goals, 3 assists last season, 11 goal assists for a Crystal Palace team. It's relative, isn't it? So that is good numbers, especially when those goals have been match winners, quite a few of them. So
in big games,
I think Tuchel, me personally, I'm hoping maybe to see maybe a transition away from like a standard back three, purely just because of like attacking talent and mid talent. I feel that can get us goals. So it's all ifs, whats, and buts though, because we do need a DM. But I think there is a solution that we could rely upon, actually, who's only 21 years old still. Had a good season in Italy. Venezia as well too. I think Ethan Ampadu, man, he played a lot of games in midfield for Venezia, and the guy was kind of all around, combative in midfield, that ball-winning player midfield, breaking forward. We know the guy can pass. We know he likes, he's healthy to get into a tackle as well. Guy's been accumulating so much maybe experience. And when I say experience, that experience of like living abroad, having to mature, live by yourself, different countries, learn the culture. These are all hard things. Imagine if me and you just had to like step out, live in another country for a year, boom, then go somewhere else for another year, then go there. It's as easy or as simple.
Leipzig, Sheffield
You know
United.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Exactly. But I feel like he's handled himself very well. I think he really was promising when that season ended. And I just think sometimes I feel we're in a situation here where this summer in particular, because the sanctions most definitely just kind of kill the timing a little bit now, you know, like when you're doing deals, you're not going to get it wrapped up in like 2 minutes like it's FIFA or something, you know. I mean, it takes a lot of time and planning and conversations to feel out people, understand who's around, you know, if they're happy with their terms or not, etc., etc. So I do think that it would be wise as well to not quickly discard a lot of options we already have in the team. I don't think Trevor Chalobah's like a rare, like an anomaly. I think he's an example of other players we could rely upon if we need to. And I do think Ampadu, playing with better players and a better system, is only 21 years old. We keep forgetting that. You know, that's how much he's been playing for, an international player too. I'd like to think that he's someone under Tuchel that could learn and grow. And I think playing as a DM, he could be a very like interesting solution if we had to beat another season, for example, to get like a Rice or anyone else.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because he's, like you said, he's played a lot of different positions. If we're going to stick with the back three, it's something he's got experience in as well. I do see him as this wild card kind of utility type player that we could use in multiple positions, where we have seen injuries in so many areas. And like you said, at Venezia, he's been able to play. He's even played, I think, right back at times. He's played, you know, centre back. He's played DM. So he's played so many different positions. If we were to get an injury, and we do get our injuries, and we will get our injuries, and we have 5 substitutions, tactically, you never know, 5 minutes, 10 minutes to go. We want to shut up shop. You can bring on an extra defensive midfielder or defensive player in Ampadu that can play in a multitude of different roles. But also back on Gallagher as well. I think what you said about that pivot for me as well, I wouldn't want to see him in that pivot over an Ampadu or Gilmour, because I feel like those two players are better in the first phase. They're better at, you know, picking up the ball off the centre backs, being progressive from deep and taking it into that second phase. I know Gallagher played a bit at West Brom in the pivot, but what he's done at Palace, that's kind of what we're missing. You know, I don't really feel like he's adding into our first phase kind of play, where in comparison to what he does in the final third, he's definitely adding there because we need goals in this team. 3-5-2 is definitely interesting as well, because you can definitely see a situation where against a big team away from home, especially, he's had great games, Man City, Tottenham, for Crystal Palace. He can be that guy that starts the counter press, that gets forward, that links the defense to the attack. I remember last time we tried this with Kova, Kante and Georgie, we had no link to the attack, whereas Gallagher's definitely going to link it. He did peter out towards the end of the season. Do you have any concerns about, I mean, listen, some of his metrics are really good. Obviously the goals, the assists, the counter presses, the pressures. Progressive passes isn't great. I've spoken to a few Palace fans. They say that his passing isn't the best. There's a lot of work that needs to be done there. A team that suffers from creativity, especially centrally as well. There's not sometimes we do go in this U shape, and we did it with Tuchel against Arsenal. It was similar to what people criticised under Frank Lampard. There's an issue in the middle in terms of creativity. Do you worry? I certainly worry that he's not solving that. He's definitely bringing goals and counter press, and he's bringing energy. He's like a balance between Mount and Kante. But I feel someone like Gilmour, who I know people will look down on his loan at Norwich, but if you look at his underlying statistics in terms of his progressive passes, his carries, he does actually match up quite well. And he's a player that I've always believed that there's something special there. When Roy Keane talks the way he does, when he puts in the performance he does at Wembley, these little glimpses, I know it's not a lot, but I feel like sometimes these kind of players, they do better around top players. I don't think they go to Norwich's and set the world alight with their fans abusing them and whatnot.
I mean, it's absolutely spot on. I've always been very curious about how Tuchel has seen Gilmour, because like when he first came, Gilmour was ready to get a short-term loan, which he was then denied, obviously getting ready for the Euros. And then I'm always saying this, I was never happy that Tuchel kind of not forced him, but maybe encouraged him. You know, Norwich would be a good move for you because of how they play, it can benefit. But I've never really understood why, you know, a player has to go to like a same identical system. It's about trying to complete your overall game. You know what I mean? So I think he would have definitely learned the different sides of football. Of course, being involved in a relegation battle, loss after loss, you'd imagine he's not going to be very happy with that. But I think, as you said, it's spot on. You know, certain players like that, they're not going to do anything at Norwich if the support's not there. And I'm going to say it like this, you know, if you're a player and you're passing the ball to someone like a Kovacic in the team compared to passing it to, I can't even think of like a Norwich player on top of my head in midfield. I can't even think, to be honest. What's that really saying?
Cantwell,
But like,
I don't know.
You can see instantly that your pass is going to be a lot better if it's going to a cover, for example, compared to whoever is receiving there. So I don't know. It's weird because you'd think that you should have just really stayed last season instead of signing Saul for all that type of money. I know that minutes was the thing, but I don't know, that the whole Norwich move was felt like a complete waste. And the thing is, because we have so much talent, anytime you have one little blip, there's always someone else ready who can take your place. That's how mad it is. So I think Gilmour definitely has a lot of life. I'm hoping that something more happens with him, but so far I haven't got too much encouragement, because even when Tuchel had opportunities to use him, he never really did. And as we're saying, we see this guy with man the match awards for fun since he's been playing for us as a team, playing for his country. So I feel like that should be utilized a bit more. But anyway, going back to Gallagher, though, as he was saying, end of season form, I think what my interpretation is that once teams clock this guy as one of the key players of Crystal Palace, it's only normal that there's going to be tactics against him to try and minimize what he does. I don't necessarily feel that it's too much of a strong reflection. Like, it kind of reminds you of Kai Havertz. He had his first season for Leverkusen, blew up. Second season, he was quite mids, actually, until the second half of the season, when he was playing on the right, false line, etc., etc. Because obviously teams are going to look to prepare against you and stop you. And that's one of the things about developing as a young player too, as well. You know, over time, you're going to learn how to cope. So having him come back alongside better players, where you can't, you know, if you're going to try and like take out our best player, we've got other great players around that's going to take advantage. I do think that he's coming back at the right time. And for me, you know, as we keep stressing, that counter pressing, I feel, and I've always said this, we've got the solutions in the team. If we had a three in midfield with maybe Gallagher on the right, breaking into the box, counter pressing, being involved in the link up, because obviously box to box means that you're receiving from the defenders a lot of times, and that's what he's really good at, instigating the play and getting forwards. Mount on the left, I think everyone kind of forgets that this guy is very good at the plays, balls. It's just, I know it's supposed to be, he's only been used so rarely as an 8 like that.
I think that's the issue here, is that everybody says, why? I get this a lot on Twitter. People are like, why do you keep talking about him in the 8? He's never been used there. Lampard played him on the wing. They played him in the 10. They played him as an inverted 10. They played him everywhere really but the 8. And the only time period I can really go back to, which I think a lot of people forget because obviously it ended up going tits up, is the early part of Lampard's second season. The early stage where we were top of the league. I think people forget that early period. Maybe it didn't last long enough. I think it went to maybe mid-November. Then we had the Christmas period.
Because we had a good run of form.
Yeah, I think Mount had a game in the 8 at home to Everton. And he played with Hudson-Odoi and Alonso. There was some sort of triangle taking place on that side there. Or maybe Chilwell, I'm not sure. But he had some really, really good games in the 8. And I just feel like sometimes when people question the decision-making or the final pass from him, I feel like his passing is better from deep. A lot of the great passes I've seen from him have come from deep, where he's able to see more of the pitch in front of him, where he's able to see a lot more ahead of him. When he's up there in the final third, despite the good statistics I've said, I feel like last season he was actually, not last season, now it'll be the season before, of course, but that was actually a better season from him, his first player of the year season, where I feel like he had more influence on the team, whereas this season he's obviously got the statistics up, where he's not always been consistent performance-wise. But I feel like in that front three, despite the statistics, I feel like sometimes he's in a rush. Do you know what I mean? Whereas when he comes back a bit, he's able to put his foot on the ball and really analyze what's ahead of him.
For sure, I agree. But I always say at the same time, I still think other players like Kai, for example, not that I hate Kai, I'm trying to like start agendas or nothing, but just in terms of just pure consistency. You know, he still does make a lot of mistakes himself, but they always tend to be ignored. And I think a lot of focus is more on Mount. But actually watching us play, you know, it's not like we're using a 10 where he's like right behind 2 strikers. We saw that near the end of last season for a handful of games, not too many, when Mount was in behind, I think, Kai and Werner up front. And you can see when he's dropping deeper, actually playing more as a cam, that he has the ability to link the play. But everyone forgets, I feel, at times that Tuchel is using these, you know, wide attacking mids, you know, so your creativity is going to be a bit different. It's going to be about balls and from the channels into the box. You don't have as many options to, especially when we don't have many guys inside the box. You watch a lot of our games, You see the striker isolated by himself. Yeah, when I look at City and other teams, you're seeing at least 4 players minimum at all times inside the books, and that's literally how you get goals. And because why make the pass even harder? You know, if you've got 1, 2 options in the books, you're expecting miracles all the time against 4 or 5 defenders against you. So I do feel like, for me, I've always believed that with tweaks in the system, we could get more out from the players in terms of how they can actually influence the game and effects. Because, like, obviously 4-3-3. You're getting that creativity a lot of times from the wingers. You know, if you're signing a Dembele, it's one of the, probably last season, could argue with the best creative player in the world due to what he was producing at Barcelona. Not necessarily as the goal threat in that sense, even though he does have it, but the creativity to link, switch, cut inside, balls over the top, incredible crosses, every technique, low driven, either foot. You know what I mean? That's where you're expecting to see that. And all the mids have to do is get inside the books, late arrivals, and be able to, you know, press, switch, and of course find runners. And I think with Gallagher and Mount, because everyone forgets that Cobham was always a very vertical style football game, you know. So they wouldn't be able to make it if they weren't able to play them forward passes, play those balls over the top, switch it, etc., to find the runners in behind.
Yeah.
So I do feel like Tuchel has a lot of solutions now already. And I think with some smart acquisitions this summer, I think that's how you unlock the team. That's how you unlock your Pulisic on the left-hand side. He doesn't have to struggle dropping in deeper. That's not his game. That's not his game to be in the central positions. He's not strong. His hold-up play on the ball isn't that. But 1v1, create that space for him, boom. He'll get past, I mean, we've seen it. Probably any player on form. Hudson-Odoi can come back alive. We missed him. We've forgotten about him because of the injuries. But even before he was injured, we were seeing what he was doing.
I still hold my stocks, bro. I still hold them. But you know what is with him now? I feel like, and I know this is off the midfield briefly, but I feel like now I want to see him go out on loan, because I feel like no matter what happens, he's not going to get consistent game time next season. And I'm one of these people.
Why do you think that? Why are you so confident about that, though?
I'm just because I can see who we're linked to in the attack, and I can see that we need to change those attackers. And I know Pulisic's definitely staying in my head just because a new American owner, we're going on American tour. He's the poster boy. He's the star boy. I just think to myself with Hudson-Odoi, he's going to end up becoming this guy that we keep moving around again. He goes and plays wing back, does a shift for Tuchel when this guy needs a rest, goes right wing, goes here, goes there. And I've seen what Tammy's been able to do with some confidence this season, going out to Roma under Jose Mourinho, given the leader of the Lion. Tomori at AC Milan, benches their captain, given that trust, leader of the defense. I want the same for Hudson-Odoi on even a 2-year loan. And maybe it's a sacrifice for us not getting to use him, but I think he hasn't put himself up in the pecking order or the pyramid scheme of players at the football club with what he's done so far. He's had he had a really good run of like 7-8 games last season. People forget that. His underlying metrics for creativity is quite good. Good switch of play, good progressive passes into the box, good final third entries. I think his shooting needs to improve big time because that's probably his biggest area of weakness. Very good crosser of the ball. Dribbling wise, we want to see the electric burst that he used to have. I don't know if that's coming back after the injury. I think we've spoken about that before. But I now want this guy, even though you know how much I love him, I want him out on loan to go and get that trust to say, if he has a bad game, like he did against Man United at home where he missed that chance, he goes back into the team the week after. I just don't feel like this environment is going to, maybe you disagree, I just don't feel like Chelsea are going to give him that environment. I don't feel like it's going to happen. Yeah. And I feel like if he goes and gets those metrics, then people are going to respect him more when he comes back as well.
I mean, I think I'm a lot more optimistic, to be fair. Like, obviously, last season, he was actually kicking out Pulisic out the team. I think it was obvious that last summer, interest from Dortmund, and we turned down the move, actually, for him to go to Dortmund. This loan that everyone wants, the club denied it. So Tuchel could keep him. And Tuchel then gave him minutes playing in this position he wanted. So he just has been unlucky with injuries. But, he's not the first youngster at this age where, every now and then you might have a few breakdowns here and there. The great thing is, though, is that this is like the first proper preseason now, and like how long, knowing that there's like proper breaks, no international tournaments in between, no COVID, delaying fixtures, etc. I think for the first time in 3-4 years. So I think that can definitely bring a lot of opportunity. And, Hudson-Odoi, normally, man, when players are getting them trims, that is normally telling you something behind the scenes about how they're approaching things, how they're playing. Obviously, I'll always respect Hudson for, I think, always trying to make the best decisions for his career. Last season, I think one of the reasons why he actually won over Tuchel was because he came to pre-season as one of the earliest guys there. He cut short his holiday. You know, he was there out training, impressing, talking to the manager. And I just think that we would have seen more acceleration in his career actually if there was more consistent minutes and not like an overabundance of competition. Like I've always said from like the moment Pulisic was signed, it's always like it's like a gamble you're taking when you want to have two players the same age competing for one spot. I've not really seen that be a success anywhere in any club ever since I've watched
the same
football.
age category, not an older to a younger. We see so much more success stories of. I've said it so many times on this channel when we talk about the defenders we've linked with, and obviously Levi Colwell. We've seen those links and what's going on there. And I've always said I prefer an older profile for this significant reason of you're looking at Tammy Giroud, you're looking at David Silva, Foden, you're looking at Jesus Aguero, James Aspilicueta. You could just climb to Trent. You could just keep going and going and going, and you will keep finding examples. Can't find too many examples of two young players, and people obviously love to have two young compete. You'll fight for your. It just doesn't work like that.
But that's that's because we're used to doing that on video games. Like we love like hogging up all the best talent and that. You know what I mean? But in real life,
it's Channel 4. It's Channel 4, bro.
Yeah, of course. But I haven't given up on Hudson yet. I know he hasn't been in the limelight due to injuries and stuff, but it does feel like maybe the plan now is to just rebuild that body fitness and get ready for next season. I can't think he can take some inspiration that, you know, he doesn't have like a debilitating what's the word? You know what?
I don't even know. You know, I'm not the guy for the big words and loads of syllables. I'm not that guy. You should see how I pronounce names. It's long. Trust
Honestly,
me,
I don't know what the hell I'm trying to say right now. But he's got no injuries that show you that okay, this is a concern for the long term. I just think that maybe, you know, I think maybe as players, you know, you stop growing at 21. You know what I mean? I think as your body's still naturally growing a little bit as well too, maybe you can be a little bit more susceptible to knocks and things like that. But he's not the first one. There's been a lot of players, especially last season, who've picked up a lot of knocks, a lot of injuries, persistently as well too. So what's that saying maybe about, I mean, for me, maybe it's saying something about the intensity levels in terms of maybe lots of players get rushed back sooner because, you know, they don't have to, there's no one to replace them in the team while they're gone. But again, I haven't really thought too much about that, to be fair. But I still feel that Hudson-Odoi has Tuchel's trust, and I'm excited to see what he does do. You know, he's still very young. I think it's what 20, 21 years old. I mean, he's been in the first team since he was 17. So normally, you know, it's not too mad. And who knows? Maybe Dembele, Hudson-Odoi, we could be seeing quite a lot of left and right. You know, I could be quite mad in terms of what they could be doing in the final third. So yeah, I've got a lot of optimism, to keep it real.
I'm gonna pivot to Tuchel's ID, talent ID, and also some DM options to kind of like close up this video in the midfield discussion, because we spoke briefly. You mentioned Saul and Tchouameni. I know you and Monster were big Tchouameni fans last summer, and you kind of introduced a lot of us to Tchouameni early, and then obviously he ends up staying, and now look where he's probably going to Real Madrid. Apparently, Tuchel was part of that decision, and I feel like people, and I know you've been quite open to sometimes when Tuchel needs criticized and actually talk about it. And it doesn't. Sometimes people don't resonate with it because we all back Tuchel, we all want Tuchel to do well, but sometimes he does get things wrong. And I didn't realize he was actually part of that decision. I thought it was more Scott, the scout, you know, that overruled the decision with his 2 years of scouting Saul over Petr Cech's recommendation of Tchouameni. But apparently Tuchel also sided with bringing in more experience in Saul over Tchouameni. Do you worry about his talent ID and some of his decision making, because in terms of transfers and players he wants to keep? Because it feels like he's got a lot of trust in everyone, and I worry that he's not going to make enough change needed in terms of an overhaul of this squad to actually put a serious imprint on it. Because you take a look at the midfield, for example, we know he's got a great connection with Loftus-Cheek. He's got a great connection with Gallagher. You've got Mount, you've got Kova, you've got Kante, who he wants to keep as well. That's a lot of guys that don't sit, don't actually remain stationary. And we've seen a lot of times this season against Brentford at home, Arsenal at home, when you don't have someone who's in the actual position to sit and hold and cover and shield that defense, we're not going anywhere. And we're certainly not going to a back four. So is he going to have yet again another imbalanced midfield next season? That is my biggest concern, because if he is, you know, we can have all of these midfielders that we like and that we rant and rave about, but at the end of the day, if there's no balance in that midfield, which there hasn't been for years, then we're going to suffer again, aren't we?
Yeah, for sure. You know, I got a little bit of a different perspective. I don't. I mean, I couldn't personally stick that all on Tuchel. Obviously, I've covered a few stories. You know, I've heard a few things from people I know. I heard about players he's liked, like, you know, your Camavingas, your Boubacar Kamaras, and a lot. And it just gets me thinking, if managers really had like final say in decisions on who they want, I guarantee the players that's coming in are completely different to what we see a lot of the times. And you know, a lot of times you're working alongside the club scouts and analysts and stuff like that, and you know, you do feed off their data they give you and their impressions and their advice. So it's not solely just down to like Tuchel has final say, etc., etc. Because we know a lot of times when signings come, it's not that Tuchel saying, okay, these are 5 mids, Saul has to be on that list, etc., etc.
Yeah.
I think Saul was just an opportunistic opportunity that came. He's just thinking, I need someone, you know. I just let Gilmour go. You know, I thought this would be a little bit different, but I think we can't forget that one of the reasons why Tuchel is popular is because of his willingness to work with the boards. You know, he doesn't really, he's never called them out, even though he probably could have had opportunities to.
Definitely in January, where they gave him Kennedy and not.
That's what I'm saying. He could have, easy, and the old Tuchel probably would have done that and would have done a lot more, to be honest. So I can't fully say it's all on him when it's a collective. So this is why I'm hoping new managers, management, new owners now are going to bring in some new ideas and techniques. We've seen the benefits of having the right advice, hence why Edouard Mendy was signed. Like, for example, Lampard never would have probably known ever about Mendy. You know, managers have certain players they like, but they're relying on, you know, what the operation around them is going to provide and help them with. So I definitely think that it's like a collective thing instead of, okay, Tuchel had the final say, it's all on him now. Because I'm guarantee if he had his own shortlist, Sal was never on that list whatsoever. So for me, it's more of an L for McCacklins and other guys who, for me, it's more of an L of the strategy in the sense that my main thing last summer, which really annoyed me, was why the hell were we even wasting time trying to sign Koundé when we had all those defenders here already? And actually looking at how our season went, I don't think any of us can really say that Koundé was missed at all. And if people might say maybe at wing back, I don't really think Koundé's even that good as a wing back.
No, he's not a wing back.
As a fullback, he's much better playing in that.
I'd say, looking back, we more missed out on the fact that if we didn't get Hakimi, we didn't keep Livramento because we knew that we needed expansive, athletic wing backs, and we only had 2 in 2 positions, and then they were always going to get tired. And that's partly why I also want to be able to. I'm not even saying we move to the back 4 and we don't play the back 3, because I've always said that the back 3, the way we play it, it's not like as if it's this boring, you know, defensive back 3 or back 5. We do try and push those wing backs up. We do move and shuffle to a 4 anyway.
Very asymmetrical as well.
Yeah, the system is so fluid. Yeah, it's so fluid anyway, so it doesn't really matter too much. But where it does matter is that Reece James and Chilwell, they've got a history now of picking up a couple of niggles, and I think to almost reset them and get them back to constant health, it might help them to be a bit more resumated and restricted in that back 4, and not have them powering up and down all the time.
Yeah, I mean, personally, you know, you'll never see wing backs getting 15 goals and 15 assists a season. It's not one of those roles that will ever happen due to like all the defensive responsibilities you also have. It's only my personal opinion on this, but I've always just liked actual wide men being, you know, I've always just liked
Iron Robbins
bring that width. I've always liked that because they have more goal threat, they have more creativity. I feel like Chilwell and James, you know, we can't forget that they are fullbacks too at heart, and these guys can provide amazing support down the flanks, in inverteds or overlapping for quality wingers. And I really feel, you know, for so long we haven't had that proper width. I look at how like a City play with the overloads of what Cancelo is doing to free up space in the channel for this guy. They create a lot of 1v1 opportunities, and I have to look at these teams because, you know, they find a lot of solutions against teams that defend deep blocks. And, you know, there's certain patterns and, you know, there's certain observations that they both have that when I compare to our game, it's not there. And for me, the number one thing is there's just never enough men in the books, because when you got a wing back, it means you got your Havertz and Mounts that have to go out wide all the time to help them get the ball up. How do they have the time to quickly run to, let's say it's Kai running to the left-hand side so Alonso could get there. So what, then Kai then has to run back in 0.1 seconds to get in the books? No, that's why we see Alonso getting in the books a lot of times instead. And it's just like, it's worked. It's gotten us where we are. We're
Backwards, though, isn't it?
competitive.
Yeah.
And it really has. But I just think that it's plateaued, and I don't think it can take us to another level because it caps some of the things I personally think the players can do. You know, like as we were saying about Mount and Kai. I'm going to even say about Kai, you know, we've signed him. He's our second most expensive player ever. And I still over 2 seasons now, haven't seen that consistent run of form, or like, maybe I might sound a bit cynical, but I still haven't consistently seen
No, you're not.
the value behind the money spent on him.
Yeah, you're spot on. Spot on. We've had moments. We've had moments
I don't
from
think
him.
it's his fault. I just think it's how he's been used, and it just takes away. Like when you're playing for the team, sometimes it can just take a bit too much away at times, especially if you're supporting old guys out wide like Aspie and Alonso.
Yeah, I think he's been better this season. He's had much more very good patches. He's had about 2 or 3 very good patches of form, but still not the consistency, and then obviously reaching the heights that we want him to reach.
He's 19 big chances as well too. So I do think that, you know, I think there's also a responsibility for managers when you have young players with big potential, you need to help them achieve that. And I remember under Mourinho, one thing I remembered with him when we had your Oscars, Hazards and stuff, especially Oscar in particular, he became a real workhorse, pressing from the front, etc., etc. And if you were a fan that never knew who Oscar was, you're thinking this is the player he is, but he's literally the definition of a classic 10 that was never ever used that way, because the manager's like, no, you got to do this. And that affects the ability of how a player can achieve their potential. I'd even say Hazard was slightly capped a bit. You know, let's say, for example, he signed for Madrid at 21 instead of us, and had Marcelo down the left with him for all those years. You know, the difference that's going to make compared to having Alonso. This is what I mean. And I think that hopefully, from what I've seen from, you know, Brody, and I've seen what they've done with the LA Dodgers in terms of acquisition and how they built a team to be the best, one of the best ones, that's the important thing.
Yeah.
They knew when to spend the money. They knew who to give the right wages to and stuff like that. This is the type of philosophy we have to add to the team, because I want to be, listen, when these guys are peaking at 25, 26, I think it's natural for all us fans, but that's the time you want to start seeing the stats being padded. You know, I want to be seeing guys getting 15 goals, assists, 15 goals, 7 assists. Not this thing we do in football today, where sometimes I feel we gas up goals and assists a bit too much, and I feel, you know, that is patronizing, but it doesn't really bother me. I just think it's just trying to, you know, people trying to point score on social media. And things, it's all about the quality. End of the day, I don't care if you got like, I don't know, 12, you know, 15 goals and assists, and like most of them are like what, pens and just like, you know, nothing too consequential. I just want to know, and I want to hope that with all the young talent there, they are going to achieve their maximum potential. And I just think that if I was to see Kai Mount playing this role forever, for example, I think they'll always be very good, but then I don't think they'll go to the level that they definitely can. And I'm looking at Kai in particular. I think Kai's, if he doesn't achieve his potential to be like a leading Prem player, he has to be one. He can't be very good. He can't be like a, you know, like the good players around like a Naby Keita equivalent or something. He's got to be
No, he's got to be a
star that one day will be the face of the Premier League when they're trying to market abroad to get people gas in the league. And I just think if he was to be used like how he's been used this past 2 years forever, just never see it happening.
Yeah, the final thing was, obviously we spoke a little bit about the DM position and recruitment. Declan Rice is a player that's been banded about for years and years. I just wanted to get your thoughts on him, because I don't know what the price tag will be, but for me, every player has their price to an extent, because I feel like the days of us just spending whatever we want on any player and just saying we're going to pay any player any wage, which is partly my concern with Dembele being a free transfer. Maybe we need to offshore some of those wages to a signing on fee, just to keep the standard week in, week out wage that he earns something respectable in comparison to the rest of the squad. And we've seen it, how it's impacted potentially our own negotiations, Man United, and I've seen, you know, Liverpool. I looked at their wage structure earlier. They're paying Mane 100k a week. That's robbery for our brother. Do you know what I'm saying? The brother's been absolutely robbed and fleeced his whole Liverpool
They've
career.
been taking advantage for years.
Bro, when I read that, I honestly choked, bro. I was like, you man actually
at the time I was just happy to be at Liverpool, and now I was thinking, what the hell,
bro? No, you need to run him
happening?
his peas, bro. Like seriously, they need to run him his money, because they've actually been fleecing him. But what is there a cut-off point you have with Rice? I know people, when they talk about him, they say, listen, he's never going to leave. He's going to be at the club for his whole career. So that helps in terms of how much money you spend on him. But do we have to look at the amount of money we've spent on players and look at that price tag and say, does that now put a certain pressure on that player, a certain fan expectation? Does that drive performance? Does that impact performance? Because some of our best signings, you could say, have been in the market value range of maybe 30 to 50 million pounds. Once we start to go above that and start to kick it up, they all flop. They all seem to have struggles and woes and worries of, and they don't seem to ever meet the expectation. Maybe it's too high. So is there a cutoff point for you? Do we need to be a bit more shrewd, or is this just a player that we just absolutely cannot miss out on?
I mean, I think this is like a very, very, complicated conversation in terms of, there's not necessarily black and white answers in that yet, right and wrongs. There's a lot of gray areas that can be discussed. It can be like quite entertaining. A part of me always feels though, for great players, you should be comfortable to overpay for them. I look at, when I get my opinions, I like to also, I don't like to let's focus on what my club's doing. I feel like maybe like with fans, we can fall into that trap of we only focus on our team. We don't know what else is happening outside of there. So that everything that we see in our team either gets worse or gets gassed up to be better than it is compared to like what is relatively happening across Europe. How are players comparing to other guys in their ranks, and you know what I mean, in their criteria and stuff like that. And I look at Real Madrid, and I think one of the examples why they've always been able to sign top players is that they're a club that's never been afraid to have to overpay if they have to. I mean, of course, when they signed Hazard from us, they didn't have to sign him for the price they did, not at all. But then they're probably thinking, listen, it's not the first time that we've signed players from this club, and they're the ones who are winning the most Champions Leagues, the most league titles, etc., etc. And with the biggest clubs, spending money to win, to be the best. You're not like Tottenham where you need to balance books and care more about finances. That's the whole goal. So I think for great players, we've always been, I think, afraid to overpay when we have to. And what annoys me is that when we miss out, then we're always very hasty to then spend over inflated amounts of money on players that shouldn't be signed for that amount of money. I'm looking at Kepa, for example. Alisson was holding talks with us and everything, but it was that price in the end, and Courtois as well too, that slowed things down. That is a management decision. You already knew Courtois wanted out. Obviously he wants it for his family to go to Spain, but he was already there because we loaned him out to Spain. No wonder he wants to go to Spain. And then they did the same thing as well too with Lukaku. He was signed very late near the window. He wasn't focused on for months and months and months. There's other targets we kept looking at until you're forced to overpay. Because Inter Milan, of course, they know they can take advantage because they're desperate. And for me, I don't think that's perfection of the players. That's poor management. And I think with good management, if there's top targets they want, you shouldn't be afraid to overpay if you have to, because we're in the business of winning. And, people want to talk about Rice's price, which I think is just incredibly disingenuous, to be honest. I don't know why out of every player ever that's been linked with us, he's the only one where people care about valuation of money. I mean, look at his contemporaries. Look at Tchouaméni. And this guy's not going for 40 million or 20 million. He's going to have to go for 80 something million. So if West Ham were to sell, they're looking at the market rate. They're thinking there's no way we're selling one of the key guys in the Premier League for his age for less than market value when guys like Tchouaméni in Ligue 1 are commanding the same fees. I don't think that means that you spend 150 mil, but I don't think it would ever come to that, because I think all it really needs to take now is if we make concrete effort, make a bid, make intent, I think Rice would actually take it from there. And I say this because remember Ben Chilwell, there was 80 million valuations placed until he forced Leicester to have to sell him by, beefing people behind the scenes to get that move done, because you have to. Because how many players are being affected? Look at Zaha. He should have been playing our top 4 club years ago, but he's still there. Like, how many players get locked in and can't look at Harry Kane?
Harry Kane is the perfect example of that. You try to be nice, and these guys, they see you as an asset. It's like you're not their brethren, you're not their friends. Do you know what I'm saying? You can't be nice.
Certain players are more serious about wanting to go to the very top and win. And certain players are still maybe a bit nicey, hoping that they can win with their friends and boys. But you're probably never win a league title ever. and all as many trophies now because you've decided that you allowed yourself to stay at Tottenham, and this is what you can't do because of course the clubs are entitled to do whatever, but you have to use your own agency as well. And I do think that Rice over the years has been very nicely with how he's how he is at West Ham. But I do think now, if he's looking at maybe like Shmeni, how we were linked with him and other targets now, he has to think I could have missed my opportunity here because we shouldn't be waiting for anyone if they're not there. If we need targets to be achieved in the season. So I would not be surprised if it just took some concrete effort from the club, like some confidence, not this stuff from the previous management where you're just constantly sending out feeders to everyone. And then in the end, how many times do those windows go through? Like, he has to make it known to West Ham. If interest comes, I want out and I want to go. And I think we have to sign him. If it's 80 million, whatever, 90, calm. There's ways to work around it. I just think getting that position secured, for me, it's not even the fact that it's Declan Rice. It's the fact that other players now are going to start to play a bit better because it's no more about having to, do everything for the team to the detriment of what you actually bring to the team,
Yeah. So this is interesting because for me, it's like, I'm very interested to see with this whole like war chest, 200 million. I've heard it before last season. Let's see how much we actually spend.
After Champions League.
Let's see how much we actually spend. Let's see how quickly we actually move. I did a video earlier on 6 things I think Todd Bowie and his consortium have got to get done ASAP, and I feel like
it's one of the first things. Spend money quick.
Yeah, like to be honest, if they're serious about Dembele and Koundé, they should be getting those ones wrapped up.
Show you're serious, innit? Yeah, 100%.
Because they're waiting. One is literally been waiting for a year. The other one is not going to PSG. It would seem after Campos changed his mind on that one, so he's available and ready to go. And obviously Marcos Alonso's agreed personal terms with Barcelona. So again, if you're freeing up positions and space and wage, then you should be able to get those 3 done really within a week. If we're being serious. So that's how I see it at the moment. And then obviously you can go from there. But we'll come to the end of this, bro. It's been a brilliant episode. We've touched on a lot of things. I'm sure the comments are going to be going off, giving their opinions. Please do give your opinions on the future of the midfield, who we should sign, their DM role, your creativity, how you feel like we're going to move in midfield. Are we going to become more Liverpool in our midfield, a little bit more octane, a little bit more energy based, and potentially look for creativity in the wide positions? What can maybe the guys in midfield actually provide more creativity than Liverpool did of old before Thiago, etc.? So let us know in the comments down below. NiiNii, bro, let them know where to find you. It's been a pleasure.
Of course, you guys, right now, summer's popping off. Of course, very exciting times in terms of what we're going to be doing this summer. New owners, Blue Lines TV, you know how to find me on YouTube. Going to be covering, the content is going to be mad this summer. There's so much coming out. You're going to be definitely surprised by a lot of things as well too. Guys can find me on YouTube, Blue Lines TV, and on Twitter as well at NiiNiiFC2.
There you go. Well, guys, make sure you tune in. The link will be in the description, tagged in the title also. For me, obviously, double uploads. We're not playing games, as NiiNii says. It's going to be a busy summer. Yeah, busy. Listen, there's a lot going on. I missed out on the blockbuster summer when we signed like Chilwell, Thiago, all those guys, Havertz.
It was a beautiful summer too.
I was on Twitter. I'm here now. And then last summer was a little bit boring because, like you said, we were messing about for a long time on the striker situation. It took a long time to get our deals. We got 2 deals done. This summer, I can smell bedlam in the winds. I'm smelling it. So I'm here now. Let's get it cooking, people. So make sure you subscribe, leave a comment down below, and I'll see you guys next time. In a bit, people.
Cool.
Peace.